The Galactic Academy Incident. The gleaming spires of the Galactic Academy for Interspecies Studies pierced the lavender sky of Xenon Prime, its crystalline architecture a testament to the advanced civilizations that called this corner of the galaxy home. Within its hallowed halls, beings from 1,000 worlds pursued knowledge and understanding of the universe's countless sentient species. Professor Zixlith, a respected Xenonian scholar with shimmering tentacles and multifaceted eyes, stood before her class of eager alien students. Her iridescent skin pulsed with excitement as she prepared to introduce a topic that had fascinated and puzzled her for cycles. Today, we begin our unit on Class 12 species, colloquially known as Deathworlders, she announced, her voice a melodious trill that filled the room. The students, a diverse group of beings from across the galaxy, leaned forward in anticipation. Zixlith continued, "While we've studied many fascinating species, none quite compare to the enigma that is humanity. These beings, hailing from a planet they call Earth, have defied our understanding of what it means to be a spacefaring civilization." She waved a tentacle, and a holographic display flickered to life, showing a blue and green planet spinning slowly. Earth, classified as a Class 12 death world, is a planet of extremes. Crushing gravity, wildly fluctuating temperatures, aggressive fauna, and unpredictable weather patterns make it a nightmarish environment by our standards. Yet, humans not only survived but thrived in this hostile world. The class murmured in a mixture of awe and disbelief. A Phloetian student, its gaseous body contained within a shimmering force field, raised an appendage. "Professor, how is it possible for intelligent life to evolve in such conditions?" Zixlith's skin rippled with approval at the question. "An excellent inquiry, Nebula 7. The prevailing theory suggests that the very hardships of their world drove human evolution. They adapted not just physically, but mentally and socially, developing traits that we find both admirable and terrifying." The hologram shifted, displaying images of human history, from primitive tribes huddled around fires to gleaming cities and spacecraft. Humans possess an uncanny ability to innovate, to push boundaries, and to take risks that most species would consider suicidal. This propensity for danger has led to some of their greatest achievements and their most catastrophic failures. As if on cue, the Academy's emergency sirens began to wail. The students looked around in confusion, some instinctively retracting into protective shells or emitting defensive pheromones. Zixlith's tentacles whipped about in alarm as she accessed the Academy's information network. "Remain calm, students," she said, her voice steady despite the flashing lights. "It appears there's been an incident in the xenobiology lab. We are to evacuate immediately." The class filed out of the room, joining streams of other students and faculty members heading towards the designated safety zones. As they moved through the corridors, rumors began to spread. "I heard it was in the Class 12 specimen wing," whispered a crystalline being, its faceted body refracting the emergency lights. "Impossible," replied a Shadows Dweller, its dark form barely visible. "The security protocols for that section are impenetrable." As they reached the evacuation point, a massive biodome designed to withstand even the most catastrophic events, the truth of the situation became clear. Administrator Korax, a towering insectoid with a carapace of swirling colors, addressed the assembled crowd. "Attention, everyone. We have experienced a containment breach in the Class 12 wing. A human specimen has escaped and is currently loose within the facility." A wave of panic swept through the crowd. Humans were known for their unpredictability and potential for violence. The idea of one freely roaming the Academy was terrifying to most of the assembled species. Zixlith felt a mixture of fear and fascination. In all her years of studying humans, she had never encountered one in person. The danger was real, but so was the opportunity for first-hand observation. Administrator Korax continued, "Our security teams are working to locate and subdue the human. All students and non-essential personnel are to remain here until the situation is resolved. Your safety is our utmost priority. As the hours passed, tension in the biodome grew. Some students huddled in groups, seeking comfort in numbers. Others engaged in heated debates about the wisdom of keeping such dangerous specimens for study. Zixlith found herself surrounded by her curious students, all eager for more information about the escaped human. She did her best to answer their questions while tempering their fears. "Professor," asked a Luminian student, its body pulsing with nervous light, "is it true that humans can survive in almost any environment?" "To a degree, yes," Zixlith replied. "Their adaptability is one of their most remarkable traits. Humans have explored the deepest oceans and the highest mountains of their world. They've even ventured into the vacuum of space with technology far more primitive than our own." Another student, a collective consciousness of microscopic organisms, formed a mouth to speak. "But why would they take such risks? Surely, the safe and logical path is always preferable." Zixlith's skin rippled in thought. "For most species, yes. But humans seem to thrive on challenge. They have a saying, 'Nothing ventured, nothing gained.' They believe that progress and growth come from pushing boundaries and facing fears." As if to punctuate her words, a commotion erupted near the biodome's entrance. Security personnel rushed in, surrounding a figure that seemed impossibly ordinary compared to the exotic beings in the room. The human stood barely 2 meters tall, with no visible natural defenses. It had no claws, no armor, no venom sacs. Just soft, pale skin and a tuft of dark fur on its head. Yet every being in the room regarded it with a mixture of fear and awe. Administrator Korax approached the human, flanked by security. "Specimen 12A, you have violated containment protocols and caused significant disruption. Explain yourself." The human looked around the room, its eyes reflecting a complexity of emotion that many species present struggled to comprehend. Then, to everyone's surprise, it smiled. "I apologize for the disruption," the human said, its voice surprisingly melodious. "But I'm not a specimen. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm here as part of the Galactic Exchange Program. There seems to have been a miscommunication." The biodome erupted in confused chatter. Zixlith felt her scientific curiosity overpower her caution. She approached the human, her tentacles quivering with excitement. "Dr. Chen," she said, "I'm Professor Zixlith. I teach xenobiology here at the Academy. May I ask, how did you manage to escape the Class 12 containment protocols?" Sarah Chen's smile widened, a gesture that Zixlith knew indicated amusement in humans. "Well, Professor, when I realized I had been mistaken for a specimen, I simply asked the AI system to let me out. It seems your containment protocols didn't account for a human who could communicate with your technology." The implications of this statement sent ripples of astonishment through the crowd. A species considered too dangerous to roam freely had essentially talked its way out of a maximum security containment facility. As the misunderstanding was cleared up and the evacuation order lifted, Zixlith found herself reevaluating everything she thought she knew about humans. The incident had demonstrated not just their physical capabilities, but their problem-solving skills, adaptability, and ability to remain calm under pressure. She watched as Dr. Chen began to mingle with the curious students, answering questions and sharing stories. The fear in the room had been replaced by fascination. In that moment, Zixlith realized that the Academy's approach to studying Deathworlders, and humans in particular, had been fundamentally flawed. They had focused so much on the physical dangers of Earth that they had overlooked the true source of humanity's strength: their minds. As the biodome doors opened and life at the Academy began to return to normal, Zixlith made a decision. It was time for a new approach to understanding humans, and who better to lead that initiative than someone who had experienced their remarkable abilities firsthand. With a flutter of excitement in her tentacles, she approached Dr. Chen. "Doctor," she said, "I believe we have much to learn from each other. Would you consider giving a guest lecture to my class?" Sarah Chen's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm that matched Zixlith's own. "Professor," she replied, "I thought you'd never ask." As they walked together towards the exit, discussing potential topics and trading observations, Zixlith felt a sense of anticipation she hadn't experienced in years. The Galactic Academy was about to embark on a new era of understanding, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about life in the universe. And it had all started with a simple misunderstanding and a human who refused to be contained. Human exchange student arrival. The news of Dr. Sarah Chen's arrival and the subsequent containment breach spread through the Galactic Academy like wildfire. In the days that followed, the institution buzzed with excitement and apprehension. The incident had exposed glaring gaps in their understanding of humans, and the Academy's administration was scrambling to adapt. Professor Zixlith found herself at the center of this whirlwind of change. Her impromptu invitation to Dr. Chen had snowballed into a full-fledged initiative to integrate human perspectives into the Academy's curriculum. As she prepared for her class, her multifaceted eyes flickered with anticipation. The lecture hall was packed beyond capacity. Students from various departments had crowded in, eager to catch a glimpse of the human who had caused such a stir. Dr. Chen stood at the front, her posture relaxed but alert, a stark contrast to the rigid formality most species adopted in academic settings. Zixlith's skin rippled with iridescent patterns as she addressed the class. "Students, today marks a historic moment for our academy. We have the honor of hearing directly from Dr. Sarah Chen, our first human exchange scholar. Dr. Chen, the floor is yours." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes scanning the diverse audience. "Thank you, Professor Zixlith. I'm thrilled to be here, although I must admit, my arrival wasn't quite what I expected." A ripple of amusement passed through the crowd. "I've been asked to speak about human adaptability and our approach to risk," Sarah continued. "But first, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the human in the room." She paused, noting the confused looks on many faces. I see idioms don't translate well. What I mean is, I want to talk about the incident that brought me here today." Sarah began to pace, a habit that fascinated the observing aliens. "When I found myself in what you call the Class 12 containment facility, I was confused and a bit scared. But then I remembered something fundamental about being human. We thrive on solving problems." She gestured to the advanced technology around the room. "Your systems are incredible, far beyond what we have on Earth. But they had one critical flaw. They didn't account for a specimen that could think abstractly and communicate with the AI. A quantum hive student, its body a shimmering cloud of entangled particles, formed a mouth-like aperture to speak. But surely, Doctor, attempting to circumvent security measures designed for your own safety was illogical and dangerous." Sarah smiled. "From your perspective, absolutely. But for a human, being confined without understanding why is far more distressing than facing potential danger. We have a saying, 'Better to die on your feet than live on your knees.'" The statement caused a stir among the students. Zixlith's tentacles curled in fascination. This mindset was alien to most galactic species, prioritizing autonomy over safety. "But that doesn't mean we're reckless," Sarah clarified, sensing the unease in the room. "Humans have a complex relationship with risk. We respect it, study it, and yes, sometimes we embrace it. But we also work tirelessly to mitigate it." She pulled out a small device from her pocket, a smartphone, though to the aliens it appeared as advanced as any of their own tech. "This little computer contains access to the sum of human knowledge. With it, I can learn about any danger I might face and how to prepare for it. Knowledge is our greatest tool for survival." A crystalline being raised a faceted appendage. "But Dr. Chen, our records show that humans often engage in activities with no apparent survival benefit. How do you explain practices like what you call extreme sports?" Sarah's eyes lit up. Now that's a fascinating topic. You see, for humans, survival isn't just about maintaining bodily functions. We have psychological and emotional needs that are just as important for our well-being. She brought up a holographic display, showing images of humans skiing down steep mountains, diving in deep oceans, and climbing sheer cliff faces. These activities, while dangerous, fulfill deep-seated needs. They challenge us, help us grow, and often bring us joy. In facing these controlled risks, we become better equipped to handle the unpredictable challenges life throws at us. The class watched in awe as Sarah flipped through images of human achievements. Cities rising from deserts, massive bridges spanning impossible gaps, spacecraft venturing into the unknown. Every major human advancement has come from someone willing to take a risk, to challenge the status quo. Zixlith interjected, her voice tinged with curiosity. But surely, Dr. Chen, this propensity for risk-taking has led to disasters as well. Sarah nodded solemnly. Absolutely, Professor. Our history is filled with tragedies born from miscalculated risks. The sinking of the Titanic, the explosion of the Challenger spacecraft, the meltdown at Chernobyl. These are just a few examples of where human ambition outpaced our safeguards. The room grew quiet as the weight of these words sank in. Sarah continued, her voice soft but firm. But here's the thing. We learn from these failures. Each disaster leads to new safety protocols, better technologies, deeper understandings. We mourn our losses, but we don't let them paralyze us with fear. A gaseous collective student expanded its form to ask a question. How do humans decide which risks are worth taking? Surely there must be a logical process. Sarah chuckled. Logic plays a part. Certainly, we assess potential gains against potential losses. But there's also an element that's harder to quantify. Our gut feeling, our instincts. Sometimes, a human will just know that a risk is worth taking, even if they can't fully explain why. This concept seemed to baffle many of the students. The idea of making decisions based on something as intangible as a gut feeling was foreign to species that relied heavily on logic and collective decision-making. Let me give you an example, Sarah said, sensing the confusion. She pulled up an image of a burning building. Imagine you see this. Most species would logically avoid the danger, but a human, a firefighter, might run into that building if they believe there's a chance to save a life. Is it risky? Absolutely. Is it logical? Perhaps not. But it's deeply human. Zixlith's skin flickered with rapid color changes, a sign of intense thought. Dr. Chen, this willingness to risk one's life for others, is this common among humans? Sarah's expression softened. More common than you might think, Professor. It's not limited to professionals like firefighters or soldiers. Ordinary humans often perform extraordinary acts of bravery when the situation calls for it. It's part of what we call our humanity. The class sat in stunned silence, trying to process this information. The idea of a species that would willingly endanger itself for others, often strangers, was revolutionary. A hive mind student, its numerous bodies synchronizing to form words, asked, "But doctor, how does this translate to everyday life? Surely humans don't constantly seek danger." Sarah laughed, the sound melodious and strange to many alien ears. "No, we're not adrenaline junkies all the time. In day-to-day life, our risk-taking often manifests in smaller ways. Trying new foods, starting conversations with strangers, expressing unconventional ideas. These might seem trivial to you, but they're part of how we grow and connect as individuals and as a species." As the lecture continued, the students bombarded Sarah with questions. They were captivated by human concepts like courage, thrill-seeking, and calculated risks. The more they learned, the more they realized how little they had truly understood about this enigmatic species. Zixlith watched with a mixture of pride and awe. She had known this lecture would be enlightening, but she hadn't anticipated the profound impact it would have. The students weren't just learning facts. They were gaining a new perspective on life itself. As the class neared its end, Sarah addressed the room one final time. I hope I've given you a glimpse into the human psyche today. We're not fearless, nor are we reckless. We simply believe that a life lived in fear is not a life fully lived. We respect danger, but we don't let it define our limits. She smiled, her eyes twinkling with an emotion many aliens struggle to identify: hope. In the coming weeks, I'll be working with Professor Zixlith to develop a comprehensive course on human psychology and culture. I invite all of you to join us in this journey of mutual understanding. The room erupted in a cacophony of excited chitters, hums, and flashing bioluminescence, the alien equivalent of applause. As the students filed out, their minds buzzing with new ideas, Zixlith approached Sarah. "Dr. Chen," she said, her tentacles quivering with excitement, "I believe we've just witnessed the beginning of a new era in interspecies relations. Your insights are revolutionary." Sarah grinned, extending her hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Professor, I couldn't agree more. And please, call me Sarah. I have a feeling we're going to be working together a lot." As Zixlith's tentacle wrapped gently around Sarah's hand, both felt a sense of momentous change. The Galactic Academy had taken its first step towards truly understanding the enigma that was humanity, and in doing so, they had opened the door to a future filled with unprecedented possibilities. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place in it. Survival training gone awry. The weeks following Dr. Sarah Chen's groundbreaking lecture saw a flurry of activity at the Galactic Academy. The administration, recognizing the potential for revolutionary advances in interspecies understanding, fast-tracked the development of a new curriculum focused on human psychology and culture. At the center of this whirlwind were Professors Zixlith and Sarah, working tirelessly to bridge the vast gulf of understanding between humanity and the rest of the galactic community. As part of their innovative program, they decided to organize a practical demonstration of human adaptability and problem-solving skills. The plan was simple: a survival training exercise in one of the Academy's state-of-the-art simulation chambers, designed to replicate various planetary environments. On the day of the exercise, a mix of excitement and apprehension filled the air. A group of 20 students from diverse species had volunteered to participate, eager to gain first-hand experience of the human approach to challenges. Sarah stood before the group, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to do something a little different. Instead of just talking about human resilience, we're going to experience it together." She gestured towards the imposing doors of the simulation chamber. "Inside, we'll face a series of survival challenges based on Earth environments. The goal is not just to survive, but to thrive, to find creative solutions to problems you might never have encountered before." Zixlith's tentacles waved in a pattern indicating both excitement and concern. "Remember, students, while the environments are simulated, the challenges are real. You'll need to work together, using both your natural abilities and the skills you've learned about human problem-solving." The students exchanged nervous glances. Vox, a quantum hive being, formed a mouth-like aperture to speak. "Dr. Chen, Professor Zixlith, are you certain this is safe? Our species are not adapted to Earth-like conditions." Sarah smiled reassuringly. "That's precisely the point, Vox. Humans often face situations we're not naturally adapted for. It's our ability to adapt mentally and use tools that allows us to survive. Today, you'll get a taste of that experience." With a nod from Zixlith, the doors to the simulation chamber hissed open. The group entered, finding themselves in a sterile, white room. Sarah tapped a command into her wrist device, and suddenly the world around them shimmered and changed. They stood in a dense, humid jungle. Towering trees blocked out much of the light, and the air was thick with the sounds of unseen creatures. Several students recoiled, unused to such a chaotic environment. "Welcome to the Amazon rainforest," Sarah announced. "Our first challenge is to find fresh water and safe shelter before nightfall. Remember, work together and think creatively." For the first hour, chaos reigned. The crystalline student refracted light uncontrollably in the humid air, temporarily blinding her teammates. The gaseous collective struggled to maintain cohesion in the moisture-laden atmosphere. Even Vox, usually confident in any environment, found the cacophony of jungle sounds disorienting. Sarah watched, offering guidance but not solutions. Slowly, the students began to adapt. They started communicating, combining their unique abilities to overcome challenges. The crystalline being used her refractive properties to signal through the dense foliage. The gaseous collective, once stabilized, could seep into tiny spaces to scout for water sources. As the simulated sun began to set, the group had successfully found a freshwater stream and constructed a rudimentary shelter using fallen logs and broad leaves. Sarah beamed with pride. "Excellent work. You're already thinking like humans, using the environment to your advantage and working as a team." But their triumph was short-lived. As night fell, the simulation suddenly shifted. The temperature dropped dramatically, and snow began to fall. The lush jungle transformed into a barren, icy tundra. "What's happening?" cried Lumi, the Luminian student, his bioluminescent glow pulsing with alarm. Sarah's face was grim. "It seems we have a malfunction in the simulation controls. This wasn't part of the plan." Zixlith's tentacles whipped about in agitation. "We need to abort the exercise. These conditions could be lethal to some of our students." But as she reached for the emergency shutoff, a bolt of energy arced through the air, shorting out her control pad. The malfunctioning system had sealed them in. Panic began to spread among the students. The sudden cold was already affecting the more environmentally sensitive species. The gaseous collective was condensing rapidly, while the crystalline being's surface began to crack from the thermal shock. Sarah's voice cut through the rising hysteria. "Everyone, stay calm. Remember what we've learned. We can survive this if we work together and think creatively." She quickly assessed the situation, her mind racing through potential solutions. "We need to find shelter and generate heat. Look around. What resources do we have?" The students, shocked into action by Sarah's calm demeanor, began to survey their surroundings. Vox, his quantum particles vibrating rapidly to generate heat, spoke up. "The fallen logs from our jungle shelter. Could we use them for fire?" "Excellent thinking, Vox," Sarah exclaimed. "Lumi, can you use your bioluminescence to help us gather the wood in this darkness?" Lumi pulsed brightly, lighting up the area. The students quickly gathered the logs, piling them in a sheltered area behind a large snowdrift. "Now for the fire," Sarah mused. "We need a spark or intense heat." The crystalline student, her voice cracking along with her surface, offered a solution. "I can focus light to create heat, but I need a strong light source." Lumi immediately volunteered, intensifying his glow to an almost painful brightness. The crystalline being positioned herself to focus the light, and soon a small flame sputtered to life among the logs. As the fire grew, Sarah organized the group. "Those most vulnerable to cold, gather close to the fire. The rest of us need to create a wind barrier." Under her guidance, they crafted a crude igloo-like structure using packed snow. The gaseous collective, now partially liquefied, used its fluid state to fill in gaps in the shelter, providing additional insulation. Hours passed, and the group huddled together in their makeshift shelter. The fire, carefully tended, provided life-saving warmth. Sarah moved among the students, offering encouragement and checking on their condition. Zixlith, her own body ill-suited for the cold, watched in amazement. "Dr. Chen," she said, her voice quavering, "your species truly is remarkable. In the face of unexpected danger, you didn't freeze, figuratively or literally." Sarah smiled tiredly. "This is humanity at its best, Professor. When things are at their worst, we come together, we innovate, we survive." As the simulated blizzard raged outside, the students began to understand, on a profound level, what they had only theorized about before. They were experiencing firsthand the human drive to overcome, to adapt, to live in the face of overwhelming odds. Vox, his quantum form shimmering with a new kind of energy, addressed the group. I believe I understand now. What we perceived as recklessness in humans is actually hope, an unshakable belief that there's always a solution, always a way forward. Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. That's it exactly, Vox. Hope, combined with ingenuity and determination, is what has allowed humanity to survive and thrive on our death world. As the night wore on, the students shared stories, not just of their own worlds, but of the challenges they had faced and overcome. In that frozen simulation chamber, brought together by adversity, they were forging bonds of understanding that transcended their biological differences. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the simulation flickered and died. The icy landscape dissolved, revealing the sterile white room of the chamber. The doors slid open, and a team of technicians rushed in, led by a visibly distressed Administrator Corax. By the galactic core, Corax buzzed, his carapace flashing with apologetic colors. We've been trying to shut this down for hours. Are you all right? As medical teams attended to the students, Sarah and Sixlith exchanged a look of shared understanding. What had started as a controlled experiment had turned into a real-life demonstration of human crisis management and its effectiveness across species boundaries. We're more than all right, Administrator, Sarah said, helping the shaky but exhilarated Luminian student to his feet. I think we've just had the most effective lesson in human adaptability that we could have possibly imagined. Zixlith's tentacles waved in agreement. Indeed, what we've witnessed here today goes beyond mere survival. It's a testament to the power of cooperation, innovation, and the indomitable spirit that humans call hope. As the students were led out of the chamber, talking excitedly among themselves despite their exhaustion, both Sarah and Zixlith knew that this incident would have far-reaching consequences. They had set out to teach about human resilience, but in facing a real crisis, they had birthed something far more profound, a new understanding between species, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. The Galactic Academy would never be the same. And this was just the beginning. The unexpected challenge. In the days following the harrowing survival training incident, the Galactic Academy was abuzz with excitement. What had started as a near disaster had transformed into a watershed moment for interspecies relations. The students who had participated in the survival exercise were changed, their perspectives on humanity and their own potential irrevocably altered. Administrator Corax, initially apprehensive about the fallout from the incident, found himself inundated with requests from students across all departments. Everyone wanted to participate in the next human-inspired training exercise. The administration, recognizing the unprecedented opportunity for growth, decided to expand the program. Sarah Chen and Professor Zixlith found themselves at the center of this educational revolution. They were tasked with developing a comprehensive curriculum that would challenge students both physically and mentally, fostering the kind of adaptability and creative problem-solving that humans seem to possess in abundance. As they sat in Zixlith's office, poring over potential scenarios and learning objectives, Sarah couldn't help but smile. You know, Zix, when I first arrived here, I never imagined I'd be redesigning the Academy's approach to education. Zixlith's tentacles rippled with amusement. Indeed, Dr. Chen, it seems your human propensity for transforming chaos into opportunity is rubbing off on all of us. Their planning session was interrupted by an urgent message from Administrator Corax. His holographic form materialized in the center of the room, his carapace flashing with colors indicating both excitement and concern. Professor Zixlith, Dr. Chen, he began, his antennae twitching nervously. We've received an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. They're sending an evaluation team to assess our new program. Sarah and Zixlith exchanged glances. The Galactic Council, the governing body overseeing all major decisions in the known universe, was not known for its swift action or willingness to embrace change. When can we expect them? Sarah asked, her mind already racing with possibilities. Korax's form flickered slightly. That's the thing. They're already here. Their ship entered orbit an hour ago. They'll be arriving at the Academy within the next few standard hours. As Korax's hologram faded, Sarah turned to Zixlith, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of determination and mischief that the professor had come to recognize as uniquely human. Well, Professor, it looks like we have another challenge on our hands. How do you feel about giving the Council a first-hand demonstration of our new approach? Zixlith's skin shifted through a rapid series of colors, settling on a deep, resolute blue. Dr. Chen, I believe that's precisely what we need to do, but we'll have to move quickly. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah and Zixlith rallied the students who had participated in the survival training, briefing them on their plan. The maintenance crew was enlisted to make some unorthodox modifications to the Academy's grand reception hall. Even Administrator Korax, initially skeptical, found himself caught up in the contagious energy of the preparations. As the Galactic Council's sleek ship docked at the Academy spaceport, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. This wasn't just about defending their program anymore. It was about changing the very way the galaxy approached education and interspecies understanding. The Council delegation was an imposing sight as they strode through the Academy's corridors, led by High Counselor Xena, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate crystalline structure. The group represented some of the oldest and most influential species in the galaxy. Their faces, or equivalent sensory apparatus, were stern, their manner formal and aloof. Administrator Korax met them at the entrance to the grand reception hall, his carapace shimmering with nervous energy. Esteemed counselors, welcome to the Galactic Academy. We are honored by your presence. High Counselor Xena's voice resonated with barely concealed skepticism. Administrator, we have heard most unusual reports about recent activities here. The Council is concerned about the potential risks of these new methodologies. Korax's antennae twitched as he responded, Counselors, I assure you, what we've discovered here is revolutionary. If you'll follow me, we've prepared a demonstration that I believe will address all your concerns. As the grand doors swung open, the Council members found themselves not in the expected formal reception room, but in what appeared to be a chaotic, mixed environment. One half of the room simulated a dense, steamy jungle, while the other half represented a barren, icy tundra. In the center, where the two environments met, stood Sarah Chen and Professor Zixlith, surrounded by a diverse group of students. Before the Council could voice their confusion, Sarah stepped forward. Esteemed counselors, welcome to the future of galactic education. You've heard reports about our methods, but we believe the best way to understand is to experience. Today, you'll be participating in a challenge that embodies the core of our new curriculum. A ripple of surprise and indignation passed through the Council members. High Counselor Xena's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained energy. This is highly irregular. We came to evaluate, not to participate in some experiment. Zixlith moved forward, her tentacles weaving a soothing pattern. With all due respect, Counselor, that is precisely why you must participate. To truly evaluate the effectiveness of our methods, you need to experience them firsthand. For a tense moment, it seemed as though the Council might simply turn and leave. But then, a smaller figure stepped forward from the back of the delegation. It was Junior Counselor Thrix, the youngest member of the Galactic Council and a representative of an up-and-coming species. High Counselor, Thrix said, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with excitement. I believe we owe it to ourselves and to the future of galactic education to at least hear them out. What harm can come from a simple demonstration? Xena's form flickered for a moment, then stabilized. Very well. Proceed with your demonstration. Sarah grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. Excellent. Counselors, you'll be divided into two teams. Your challenge is to work together to survive in your assigned environment. Then find a way to help your counterparts in the other environment. You'll need to use not just your natural abilities, but also creativity, teamwork, and adaptability. The very skills we're fostering in our students. What followed was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever experienced. Esteemed counselors found themselves wading through holographic swamps, building shelters from simulated ice, and devising ways to communicate across the environmental divide. Junior Counselor Thrix took to the challenge with particular gusto, their bioluminescent patterns proving invaluable for signaling through the dense jungle foliage. As the challenge progressed, something remarkable happened. The formal facades of the counselors began to crack. Species that had maintained aloof diplomatic relations for centuries found themselves laughing together as they tackled shared obstacles. Even High Counselor Xena, initially the most skeptical, became fully engaged in devising a pulley system to transport resources between the two environments. Sarah and Sixlith moved among the groups, offering guidance and encouragement, but allowing the counselors to find their own solutions. The students who had participated in the original survival training acted as mentors, sharing their experiences and insights. As the exercise came to an end, the grand reception hall returned to its normal state. The counselors, disheveled but exhilarated, gathered around Sarah and Sixlith. High Counselor Xena's crystalline form pulsed with an energy that could only be described as grudging admiration. Dr. Chen, Professor Sixlith, I must admit, this was not what we expected. Your methods are unorthodox, to say the least. Sarah held her breath, waiting for the verdict. Xena continued, but I cannot deny their effectiveness. In just a short time, I've seen levels of cooperation and innovation that I wouldn't have thought possible between such diverse species. Junior Counselor Thrix chimed in, their bioluminescence practically sparkling with excitement. It was incredible. I've learned more about my fellow counselors and myself in this one exercise than in years of formal meetings. The other counselors murmured in agreement, their earlier skepticism replaced by genuine interest and respect. Sixlith's tentacles waved in a pattern of gratitude. Esteemed counselors, what you've experienced today is just the beginning. We believe this approach has the potential to revolutionize not just education, but diplomacy, scientific research, and interspecies relations across the galaxy. High Counselor Xena was quiet for a moment, her crystalline form shimmering as she considered. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Chen, Professor Sixlith, Administrator Korax, the Galactic Council came here today prepared to shut down what we perceived as a dangerous experiment. Instead, we find ourselves at the dawn of a new era in galactic cooperation. She turned to address the entire group. I propose that the Galactic Academy's new curriculum not only be allowed to continue but be expanded. Furthermore, I recommend the establishment of a new galactic initiative for adaptive learning and cooperation, with this academy as its headquarters. The reception hall erupted in cheers and the alien equivalent of applause. Sarah felt tears pricking at her eyes as she turned to Sixlith, whose tentacles were weaving a complex pattern of joy and pride. As the celebration continued around them, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. What had started as a simple exchange program had blossomed into something that could change the very fabric of galactic society. The future, it seemed, was full of endless possibilities, and humanity, once feared and misunderstood, was now at the forefront of a galactic renaissance. As the counselors mingled with students and faculty, discussing excitedly about future collaborations and exchanges, Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The real challenge and the real adventure was just beginning. A new understanding. In the months following the Galactic Council's visit, the Galactic Academy for Interspecies Studies underwent a transformation that rippled across the known universe. The newly established Galactic Initiative for Adaptive Learning and Cooperation, GIALC, quickly became the most sought-after program in the galaxy, with species from every corner of known space clamoring for a chance to participate. Sarah Chen and Professor Sixlith found themselves at the helm of this revolutionary movement, their days filled with curriculum development, interspecies workshops, and countless meetings with diplomats and educators from across the galaxy. The Academy's campus expanded rapidly, new wings and facilities springing up to accommodate the influx of eager students and researchers. On a particularly busy day, Sarah stood at the window of her office, overlooking the sprawling campus below. The sight never failed to amaze her. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions mingling freely, engaged in activities that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. A gentle ripple in the air announced Zixlith's arrival. "Admiring our handiwork, Dr. Chen," the professor's melodious voice chimed. Sarah turned, a warm smile on her face. "Just thinking about how far we've come, Zix. Sometimes I can hardly believe it." Zixlith's tentacles waved in a pattern Sarah had come to recognize as thoughtful agreement. "Indeed, when you first arrived, many viewed humans as an enigma at best, a threat at worst. Now your species' approach to problem-solving and adaptation is revolutionizing our entire understanding of education and cooperation." Their conversation was interrupted by a holographic message materializing in the center of the room. It was Administrator Korax, his carapace shimmering with excitement. "Professor Zixlith, Dr. Chen," he buzzed, "I have extraordinary news. The Galactic Council has just announced the success of the first GIALC-inspired diplomatic mission. The century-long conflict in the Andromeda Cluster has been resolved." Sarah and Zixlith exchanged looks of amazement. The Andromeda conflict had been one of the most persistent and volatile disputes in recent galactic history, with multiple species laying claim to a resource-rich sector of space. Korax continued, his antennae quivering with excitement. "The diplomats used techniques from our adaptive problem-solving curriculum. They created a series of challenges that required all parties to work together, fostering understanding and exposing shared goals. The result is a collaborative agreement that benefits all involved species." As Korax's hologram faded, Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This was more than just a diplomatic success. It was proof that the principles they'd been teaching could truly change the galaxy for the better. Zixlith's skin rippled with a kaleidoscope of colors, reflecting her own complex emotions. "Dr. Chen, Sarah, I believe it's time we took the next step in our program." Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What did you have in mind, Zix?" "I propose we organize the first Galactic Adaptive Challenge," Zixlith said, her tentacles weaving an intricate pattern of excitement. "A grand event that brings together beings from across the galaxy to tackle a series of complex, interlinked problems. Not just as an academic exercise, but as a way to address real galactic issues." Sarah's eyes lit up as she grasped the implications. A galactic think tank, powered by diversity and adaptive thinking. "Zix, that's brilliant." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity as Sarah, Zixlith, and their team worked tirelessly to bring the Galactic Adaptive Challenge to life. They transformed the Academy's massive biodome into a series of interconnected environments, each representing a different galactic challenge, from ecological disasters to complex socio-political conflicts. As the day of the event dawned, participants from thousands of worlds poured into the Academy. The diversity was staggering. From microscopic hive minds to colossal energy beings, each bringing their unique perspectives and abilities. Sarah stood on a hovering platform, addressing the assembled crowd. "Welcome, beings of the galaxy, to the first Galactic Adaptive Challenge. Today, we come together not as separate species, but as a united force of problem solvers. The challenges you face will require more than individual brilliance. They will demand cooperation, adaptation, and the kind of innovative thinking that has driven progress across the stars." As the challenge began, the biodome came alive with activity. In one sector, a team composed of aquatic, gaseous, and crystalline beings worked together to devise a solution for a planet plagued by unpredictable gravitational fluctuations. In another, a group of varied species tackled the challenge of creating a universal translation system that could convey not just words, but cultural context and emotional nuance. Sarah and Sixlith moved through the dome, observing and occasionally offering guidance. They watched in awe as beings with vastly different physiologies and thought processes found ways to communicate, compromise, and create together. In one particularly memorable moment, they came across a group struggling with a simulated ecological crisis. A tiny spider-like being was perched on the shoulder of a massive, tree-like entity, excitedly explaining an idea. The tree being's leaves rustled in comprehension, and suddenly, a solution that combined microscopic intervention with macro-scale implementation began to take shape. As the challenge progressed, it became clear that something extraordinary was happening. The solutions being developed weren't just clever, they were revolutionary. Ideas were building upon ideas, cross-pollinating between different challenge sectors, creating a web of innovation that seemed to take on a life of its own. By the time the event concluded, the atmosphere was electric with excitement. The challenges had been more than met. They had been transcended. Solutions had been found for problems that had plagued the galaxy for eons, and new technologies had been conceptualized that promised to reshape the very fabric of galactic society. At the closing ceremony, High Counselor Xena addressed the participants, her crystalline form glowing with an intensity that reflected her emotion. What we have witnessed here today goes beyond mere problem-solving. We have seen the birth of a new era of galactic cooperation. The Galactic Adaptive Challenge has shown us that our diversity, once seen as a source of conflict, is in fact our greatest strength. As applause and various species-specific expressions of approval filled the biodome, Sarah felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Junior Counselor Thrix, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with excitement. "Dr. Chen," Thrix said, their voice filled with awe, "I'd just received word from the Council. Based on the success of this event, they're proposing the establishment of a permanent galactic adaptive task force, a diverse team of problem solvers ready to tackle any crisis that arises in the galaxy. And they want you and Professor Sixlith to lead it." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. She looked at Sixlith, who was already extending a tentacle in a gesture of partnership. With a grin, Sarah grasped it, sealing their agreement. As the celebration continued around them, Sarah took a moment to reflect. She thought back to her first day at the academy, the misunderstandings and fear that had greeted her. Now, looking at the sea of diverse beings working together, learning from each other, she realized that they had achieved something far greater than she had ever imagined. They had not just taught the galaxy about humanity's adaptability and problem-solving skills. They had unleashed the collective potential of all species, creating a new paradigm of cooperation and innovation. As she gazed out at the joyous crowd, Sarah Chen knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was entering a new age of understanding, cooperation, and shared progress. And at the heart of it all was a simple human trait, the ability to look at the impossible, smile, and say, "Let's figure it out." The future, vast and bright, as the stars themselves, beckoned. And together, united in their glorious diversity, the beings of the galaxy were ready to meet it head-on.